Yeah, okay. Now I lost it. Just gonna do a quick introduction at 7 and start it.
Cool. Hey, Ashley. Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I had to switch to my headphones because there's other noise going on downstairs. I would just need permission again to share the screen.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Mm.
All right, Nikki, it's 8 o'clock.
All right, let's get going.
You wanna wait another 2 minutes for more people?
Okay, yeah, 2 minutes and then we'll start.
Sounds good.
Okay, that's 7:02 from what I can see, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Hi everybody, thank you for coming to tonight's presentation of accessibility in social media. If you would please put your name and your chapter in the chat so I can take attendance, and we'll get started right away. Thank you. Ashley, whenever you're ready.
Sure thing. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Can you guys hear me okay?
I hear you
I'm gonna just,
perfectly.
okay. I'm just making everybody super small on the screen, so if you need anything, just feel free to interrupt me. So nice to meet everybody. My name is Ashley Nyale. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing Communications at Respectability, and we're a disability-led nonprofit that really focuses on disability inclusion. So just a brief overview of what disabilities are. It really is one of the more unique, wide range topics when you talk about inclusion and accessibility, because disabilities can be permanent or something temporary. It could be something that is apparent or non-apparent, and you could either acquire a disability as your life goes on, or you can have a disability from birth. Oops, sorry about that. So about 61 million people in the United States have a disability, which makes 1 in 4 adults that identify as having a disability. And this is over a broad range of disabilities, which can be physical, sensory, cognitive, mental health, or any other disability. There are also people out there who have undiagnosed disabilities as well that identify as having a disability. So one of the most important things that we talk about here at Respectability is the importance of lived experience. So organizations work their best when they welcome, respect, and include people of all backgrounds, and that includes disabilities. There is no race, gender, creed, political affiliation that doesn't have an intersection with disability. So the importance of lived experience and understanding people's lived experience is super important. And especially when you matriculate through the workplace, making sure that you include disability as an intersection for all of those identities are super important. So one of the unique factors about disability is that anyone can acquire a disability. A lot of times we notice it as people age, sometimes people get in an accident, trauma can happen, or illness can allow somebody to have a disability. One of the things that you can do as somebody who identifies as having a disability or doesn't identify as having a disability, you can work on becoming an ally, which can make adapting to having a disability even easier. People with disabilities are diverse and part of all of our communities. Once again, we really focus on the intersection of disability and all identities. So one of the things that we talk about consistently is the value of inclusion. So individuals with disabilities can be a valuable asset to your chapter. People with disabilities care a lot about service, leadership, friendship, and a sense of belonging, just like all people, something that's super important to the human experience. People with disabilities can fully or independently engage with your organization or your content. So one of those things that we like to talk about is just the overall human experience. And a lot of times when you are an ally or a person with disability, that human experience is no different. You usually have a passion for service, for leadership, for friendship. As a person who's a part of a sorority myself, that is something that was super important when I joined one, as well as making sure those values aligned with what I chose to do with my life. So one of the more important things that we like to think about is what should be accessible. And the right answer is everything should be accessible. We don't want to look at accessibility as something that's a daunting task or it should be included to check a box. We want to make sure that things are super accessible for all people of the human experience. So that includes digital resources, communication and information, physical and virtual spaces, presentations, whether they're virtual or in person, and that also includes social media. A lot of times in this day and age, as you know, social media is people's first exposure to your organization. We post a lot of content about our daily lives, as well as what our chapters are doing or what the organization as a whole is doing. And the best way to attract a diverse audience is making sure that you're showcasing a diverse audience and making sure a diverse audience is included in your messaging and how you present your content. So one of the main principles of social media accessibility are really captured in these three buckets. Making sure that photos have alt text, which stands for alternative text on photos. Making sure that videos have captions in certain situations, which include ASL interpreters in your video. And making sure that you showcase individuals with disabilities in your photos. And individuals with disabilities does not have to be limited to a person in a wheelchair or a person, you know, who has some type of physical disability. Your alt text can show what type of disability you're portraying, and that can also go across many different gender identities as well as races. So you don't have to limit yourself when you think about including people with disabilities in your photos. So one of the important things about alternative text or alt text, it allows people who have blind or low vision to understand the contents of a photo. So just like anytime when we're in school or anything else where we may come across a word we don't know, we can quickly look it up on Google or dictionary and it provides a level of context. Or as we read, the words around the main word provide the context for the word that we need to learn about. So the same thing is alt text. If somebody has low vision or is blind, they may not be able to see the image that's there, but alt text provides a visual description of what's there. Alt text should be used on websites, presentations like PowerPoint, in addition to all social media. Making sure that you include alt text to describe the meaning of your picture and contains any text that's within the picture. So if you have an image that has text on top of it, you also want to describe the text that's on the image as well. So an example of alt text Here you see a photo on the left. The description of the photo is a woman of color with a disability works at a computer wearing a face mask. So it's important that people in our pictures have disabilities, which is why the disability status is important to the context. We want people who are using alt text to understand the context of the photo. So other considerations that we can make for blind or low vision individuals, in addition to alt text, is understanding that some individuals also use screen readers. And this requires the use of camel case hashtags. And camel case hashtags mean just capitalizing the first letter of every word in any hashtag. So when you're using a hashtag, you want to remember to capitalize the first letter of each of the words. So that way a screen reader or someone who's using a screen reader, it can read it appropriately and accessibly and in an understandable way. So there are two examples of what that hashtag can look like if you're including it to describe or on your social media post. So one of the best practices for any videos, as you know, a lot of content has turned into video content, is to include captions on a video, no matter how short it is. So captions, which sometimes are compared to subtitles, include background noises, speaker differentiation, and other relevant information, such as music is playing or people lightly talking in the background. We want to make sure we include relevant information so that someone understands the context of what's going on. To create captions, you can upload a video to YouTube and use the auto-generated captions. When you do something like this, you want to just make sure you go back and review the captions before posting any videos to make sure they're accurate. So for example, if somebody uses someone's name and the name is a common word, you want to make sure that name is spelled correctly or that the captions picked up the right word and that you're correcting those. So videos should have an audio description as one of the options that you can also enable. This would verbally tell people what's going on in the video. I will pause for a second if there's questions and expand my screen. Anybody have any questions? Awesome. So one thing about captions, it doesn't just benefit individuals that are low vision or blind. It actually benefits everybody. 41% of videos are incomprehensible without sound or captions. In fact, 80% of viewers react negatively to videos that are auto-playing without sound. Many social media outlets autoplay videos on silent. A lot of times people who don't have sometimes people who don't have any type of hearing issue or that is deaf or hard of hearing still use captions to understand the context of a video. Caption help with comprehension, dialogue, clarification of terminology, concentration, and engagement. And I'm sure everybody, every once in a while, especially if you're watching a foreign show, you make sure that you have the captions on so you can actually understand the context of what's going on. Another way that we can use inclusive practices in any type of social media or digital platform is using ASL interpreters. So American Sign Language, or ASL, which is commonly known as, is a distinct language with its own set of grammar and rules. So many ASL users do not know English, just as English speakers don't know ASL. So it's best practice to have a visible ASL interpreter in all videos or in in-person events. This allows the opportunity for a deaf person or a hard of hearing person to engage in what's going on. So one of the best practices that can look like is if you have a smaller video, you might want to put out an ASL video with a voiceover that matches the original video if the ASL square will be too small. I want to make sure on larger formats or presentations, like if you're projecting something on a laptop or a computer, that you have an ASL speaker that's visible enough for someone to see what they're doing. So you want to make sure that you share the names of speakers and any materials ahead of time, so that way interpreters can be familiar with the material. Another thing that we talk about as far as social media is concerned is universal design principles. So, universal design is the notion that certain accommodations can be made to ease everybody's experience, just like what we talked about with captions. So, we want to make sure it's for equitable use, that it's simple and intuitive. It has a low tolerance for an error. It allows tolerance for errors. There's low physical effort. And we actually have an article that's linked in here for universal design and understanding universal design. So we just want to make the idea that access benefits everybody. We don't want to look at disability as this burden that we have to provide access outside of the community so we can include somebody and it's this burdensome thing. Access actually benefits everybody in our community and it includes everybody in our community. So resources for accessibility and things that we'd like to consider is a little acronym called FLAC. So font. So we want to make sure font is sans serif and at a readable size. The standard is usually 14-point font or larger. And sans serif means like the font you're seeing here, that there are no tiny curls at the end of it. So just like what you would see with like Times New Roman, you want to use an accessible font like Arial or Tahoma or Verbana. So we want to make sure links are available and embedded and descriptive. So we don't want to just say, click here. We want to make sure that we're describing what it is. Link to the Zoom website, and then you can make the link a clickable link that's embedded in the content. You want to look for accessibility checkers. So before posting content, you just want to make sure you're reviewing your content to make sure that it is accessible. So you can use certain checkers that are in things like PowerPoint. If you use canva.com, there are accessibility checkers that you just do a drop down. There are a lot of free websites that also have accessibility checkers, and this helps just flag for errors and gives warnings and tips. And you want to make sure you consider color. That color is of a high contrast and conveying information. So high contrast means black on white, white on black, anything that is not too similar in color, especially if the content is something that you're expecting someone to read. So if you would like to continue your disability inclusion journey, we have certain resources that this presentation will have available. Best practices, you can always look things up to ask best practices. You can always reach out to somebody. If you do need to make sure your content's accessible, one of the things that we even do at Respectability is we may get somebody who's blind or low vision to review it with their screen reader just to make sure that, you know, other individuals who are not blind or low vision, that the screen reader is reading something. It takes a little bit of effort, but it makes such a big difference when it has to do with accessibility, especially on social media and in digital platforms. This includes virtual events. If you're having a virtual event, you might want to take time to look up someone who does ASL, making sure that they're available and making sure that they're at a visible part of the stage. If you're doing a virtual event like what we're doing right now, you want to make sure that you have the ASL presenter pinned on the screen so that way anybody who's using an ASL interpreter doesn't have to search through sometimes up to 1,000 people on a Zoom invitation. We also have equity and access webinar series that we also have linked in this document that you can take advantage of. That's at the respectability.org/accessibility webinars. And one of the things that I would also like to point out that is accessible is even when you're in forums like this, if people are writing comments in the chat, you want to make sure to accommodate everybody in the chat, that somebody takes the time to read the comments that are in the chat. Sometimes individuals who may be using a screen reader or maybe looking at an ASL interpreter may not have the time or the space on their digital platform to look at the chat or be able to read it. So sometimes just taking a pause and saying, Ashley is saying this in the chat and what the responses and the content is that's in the chat, and reading that. So make sure everybody can engage and participate in the content that you're putting out there. So I want to say thank you for this presentation. And I want to open the floor for any general questions or thoughts on how to make your content more accessible, or anything that you were just curious about as far as disability inclusion.
What happened?
So if there are questions, I know. I'm sorry, say it again.
Nick,
I
do you
don't
have a
know what
question?
happened. Looks like everyone's here and the video's playing and everything, but we don't see it.
If anybody, does anybody have any other questions or would like to put any questions in the chat? I know Jake also put the resources and the links in the chat as well. And thank you so much for putting your chapter information in the chat as well. If you have any further questions, Jake will also share this presentation out. And if you have any further questions or thoughts on digital accessibility or accessibility in general, you can always reach out to us. And after you share the document, if you want to take advantage of any of the resources that are in there, they're completely free. They're on our website, and they are also accessible content if you wanted to share it with anybody else.
I also wanted to mention that I'm available. My email address is just accessibility at omegaphi.org. And I will respond as best I can. But thank you all, and thank you for coming tonight. And if I don't have your name, please make sure I do so you get credit for attending. Yes, thank you for the resources. That was very helpful for our future use.
And if anyone would like to ask any questions of Ashley or myself, we're available right now. You could also just email me with questions. I put my email in the chat box and can do that again. But yeah, we're very happy to help with any specific social media things that you're doing for your chapters, or more general questions about disability inclusion or social media accessibility. We're here to help.
And this I have found, just so everyone knows, I found Reselectability to be an excellent source. These people are very helpful and definitely know what you're talking about. So if you have questions, I seriously urge you to take advantage of this opportunity because it is a good one. Any questions? Well, thank you for coming, and if there are no questions, I guess we can end for tonight.
All right, thank you all, and thank you for having us. If you have any questions, I put my email in the chat box multiple times, and Nikki has it as well. And I'd love to help.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. You're welcome. Take care.
Okay.
Bye. Have a good night.
I'm still here if anyone has any questions.